Good afternoon. Welcome to the Big Show. The Big Show is what we do every single day when we talk about things involving Pittsburgh sports. I'm Paul Zeise, of course, of the Post-Gazette. Makes sense because this is the Post-Gazette's um, uh, YouTube channel. We just had some big news. And it's the kind of news that we've been waiting for some period of time. I have to kind of laugh because I could swear it was just like 2 days ago, maybe. There was a report from Adam Schefter that said something to the effect that TJ Watt and the Steelers are, way far apart on a deal. TJ Watt doesn't want to, deal with the number of years the Steelers want to give him and all that other stuff. Here's the reality. The reality is they signed him today, so it's over. There's no more discussions about him and his contract. He's going to be a one helmet guy and all the other stuff that people talk about. And it's going to be very interesting to see what this all looks like. Now, if you look at the way that the deal is structured, it's one of those things where they're going to make him either the highest or the second highest paid player in the NFL, depending on who you believe. Some people are saying it's a 4-year deal where they basically ripped up this year or rolled this year into it. Some people said it's a 3-year deal. And a 3-year deal would make it a little bit different from the standpoint of how much money TJ Watt is actually set to make. Now, Adam Schefter says basically that this is a 3-year deal. So Watt will play out this year, $25 million or whatever it is. And then it will be basically $41 million a year for the next 3 years. And 108 of it is fully guaranteed, which is actually less money than Myles Garrett got. So he's got the highest average for a player, but he didn't get the most guaranteed money. Not that that matters that much because they paid him a hell of a lot of money, and I don't think he's going to have a hard time paying bills. But the reality is they signed him to the deal. They got him done. And now, it's going to be interesting to see if they get their money's worth for him. I think the deal is too long. I would not have given him that many years, but I get it. I understand it. There's a lot of people that believe it's the right thing to do and that he's the guy that, is worth it. But I just don't know. I just don't know if you're going to get your money's worth out of it. I just don't. I kind of think that he's a guy that's a little bit old right now. And I think that's where we, come to probably a difference in opinion when we talk to people about it. It's one of those things where I believe it's got to be, a situation of where they get their money's worth out of this, and I just don't know that they will. And so, to me, you go through it like we did the other day. And I feel like it's one of those situations where the Steelers kind of felt like they had no choice. And they wanted to find a way. Okay, to get out of it where both sides could save a little bit of face. Because like I said, if you look at the deal, and, it's out there for you to see, they didn't make him the highest guaranteed money. They didn't make him that. What they did make him, right, was allegedly the highest average amount. So, it tells me that the deal is probably structured in a way that the final year of it, they're going to be able to get out of if they need to without, having a whole lot of pain. But it's one of those things where I need to see what the deal really is and really looks like. And I just think that it's one of those things where, people are going to debate it. They're going to discuss it. They're going to, we've done that for the last 2 months. But at the end of the day, I think it's one of those situations where, we are in a place where I just feel like the Steelers had really no choice here. If they wanted to try and keep him, they knew that they were going to have to give him a lot of money. And they knew it was going to be a situation of where they went out and found a way to make it work. They had. Now, again, Jerry Dulac is reporting that the average salary is $36 million over the course of the 4 years. I think if you do the math, right? If you do the math, in Dulac, what Dulac is basically saying is that they just rolled this year into a 3-year deal to make it a 4-year deal. The agents, I guess, whatever, Adam Schefter, a number of other people are saying, no, it's a 3-year extension. In other words, TJ Watt will get, his $25 million or whatever he's due this year. And then starting next year, it'll be $41 million a year for 3 years. And I think that's pretty significant. It's significantly different, if you ask me. And the reason I say that is because I really believe that if it's a 3-year extension with $108 million guaranteed and $123 million total, if it's a 3-year extension, then that $108 million is going to be a lot harder to spread that money out. And it probably means you're not going to be able to get out of that 3rd year nearly as easily as if they basically said, listen, we'll rip this contract up that you have right now. We'll give you a 4-year deal. We'll give you the $108 million guaranteed, but we want to be able to spread it out, in a way where it's front loaded so that when you become 34 years old, 35, whatever you're going to be at the end of this deal, if we need to get out from underneath it, we can. I think that's significant. I know that there probably are some people who are saying, oh, you're talking about semantics. I don't believe I am. I don't. I think the Steelers, if they didn't basically roll all 4 years together like Jerry Dulac says they did, if they didn't do that, then they basically are going to be on the hook for at least 3, if not 4 years, regardless of what happens with him, regardless of how beat up he is, regardless if he gets hurt or whatever, Father Time is undefeated, all of that stuff. Regardless, that's the point. So I think when we go from there, it's one of those situations. When we go from there, it's really important that we find out what the numbers actually are, because that is really going to be, to me, if it's a 3-year extension and all $108 million is in that 3-year extension, then I will tell you this much right now. I hate the deal. If it's a 4-year deal and they can spread that $108 million over the first 3 years and make it so that the last year, they're not really having to, have a bunch of dead cap money if they cut them or whatever. I mean, I just feel like, to me, I'd like to deal a lot less if it's a 3-year deal. So, again, we need to see what the actual deal is. Right now, you're kind of getting the version that we're getting from the agents, for the national guys. The Steelers are kind of giving their version. I mean, bottom line is, any one of these stories that happen, it's amazing how many different versions there are that are out there, to be honest. But sooner or later, the truth will come out. Now, as for TJ Watt, I mean, the reality is the Steelers over the last 4 or 5 years, their record with him is a lot better than their record without him. He's been a very valuable player for him. He's been a guy that's, that they can count on to almost single-handedly win games at times. Clearly, their defense is better with him than they are without him. My only question By the end of the year, he's worn out. So to me, and I know that this won't happen because this isn't how Tomlin does things, and this isn't how they do things. And Watt's a guy that wants to be on the field. If it were me, and I just paid a guy that's 31 years old, $108 million guaranteed, plus a total of $145 million or whatever it is, I'll be honest with you. I would say that basically I would put him on some semblance of a pitch count. So you got Nick Herbig, and you know what? Let him play X amount of snaps. Let's see what he can do. And all of a sudden, it's one of those things where I feel like it's one of those things where they have to try and make sure that he is 100% and really ready to go by the end of the season for the playoffs. I mean, he's gotten beaten up every year pretty much. He's gotten to a point where, he gets worn down. If you look at his playoff numbers, I mean, he had that strip sack and touchdown against Kansas City a few years ago, and for the most part has done nothing else. And if I'm not mistaken, this last year against Buffalo, he put up zeros. When I say zeros, I mean not even like a hurry or a pass defense or, not even any of that stuff. Zeros across the board. It's just not actually very good. To me, I think it's I understand why the Steelers did this. I understand why they did it. My question is whether or not it was the right move, and we'll explore that a little bit more a little bit later. But first, we're going to go to our good friend, Noah Hiles. How are you doing, Noah?
I'm well, Paul. How are you?
Good. Maybe we should call you World Traveler, Noah Hiles.
Yeah,
You've been
right?
on the road. You got to see the All-Star game. And you know what? One of the things that Noah covers the Pirates, so we're going to talk a little Pirates here for a few minutes. One of the things that's amazing to me, Noah, is that O'Neal Cruz is the king of StatCast and not much more. So my question to you, and, I got to get down to the stadium to ask myself, are there tangible ways to measure O'Neal Cruz developing as a hitter? Because quite frankly, Noah, I don't give a rat's ass that he has the hardest hit ball in baseball. And I don't give a rat's ass that he had 7 of the longest home runs in the home run derby. I don't care about any of that crap. I really don't. I care about the fact that he's got an OPS under 800. I care about the fact that he's hitting about 204. I care that in a league where the best guys that are home run hitters have, 27 to 38 home runs, he's got 16. That's what I care about. So my question to you, are there tangible ways to say he's getting better? It's going to show up in the results soon.
I don't think you could say that about his performance as a hitter this year. I think that he's gotten better in the field as the season's progressed. It's not as ugly or as frustrating as it was in April. I think he's a much better base stealer this season. I think he's running more frequently and successful while doing so. But as a hitter, yeah, I think it's fair to say he's regressed. He had an incredible stretch in late April. That road trip out west where he was the best player on the field in some games, including a couple of games against the Dodgers. And you know how many good players they have. He was the best player on the field in some of those games. But he took a step back in May. He was terrible in the month of June. And July, he's been, kind of underwhelming as well. So I don't know what the issue is. I thought the leadoff spot was the final answer because when they moved him there, he was unbelievable at the start. But I think I don't know what the issue is. He's not hitting left-handers like he did last season. Last season, he was a weapon against left-handers in the second half. He kind of figured that out and really mashed against them and was hitting them really well to start this season. But I believe he's hitting under 200 against them this year. The power really has disappeared. He was well on pace for a 30 season, and he might still be, but it's harder to see that happening now than it was earlier in the year when he was among the league leaders in home runs in addition to stolen bases. I think part of it might be his surrounding cast. It's a lot easier to hit the baseball better when other players in the lineup are also hitting well. And when you're the only guy that's a legitimate power threat in this lineup, you get pitched to differently. I mean, his coaches have told me they pitch to O'Neal Cruz different than the rest of this lineup. He doesn't see a lot of pitches to hit. And when your pitch selection isn't amazing, it's going to be a challenge for you to maximize those opportunities to really capitalize on a mistake from a guy on the mound. So it's still a learning experience for him. It's a longer learning experience than a lot of people would have liked it to be. I still think he will play better baseball in his career. I don't know how much better he's going to be during his time in Pittsburgh, but I do think it's going to be better than what we saw from him in the last couple of months.
Joe Starkey took Brian Reynolds to task. Again, he's a guy that is their highest paid player, OPS less than 700 for God's sakes, hitting 225. He does have 10 home runs, which I think that's probably right about where he should be, maybe 20 to 22 home runs per season. So, maybe he's a little behind, but I don't. The question I have is he done? Is he father time? Is it just, or is he just having a bad year?
I don't know. I mean, if you look at his numbers, he's regressed since signing that extension, essentially. I mean, from 2021 on, his OPS has gone down. I think it was actually up a point in 24 compared to 23, but he hasn't been the player he was since signing that OPS, despite being in an age range that should be the prime of his career. Defensively, he is just nowhere near the player they thought they were probably extending. And his offense just isn't good enough for what the Pirates need him to be for that much money. If another team's paying him that much money, it's one thing. But if the Pirates are going to allocate more than 10% of their payroll for one guy, they need him to be a lot better than this. I mean, he's been their worst player this year. Like, metrically speaking, he has their lowest wins above replacement total out of all everyday starters. And when he's your highest paid position player, that just can't happen.
What's the second half success look like for you? Is it 32 and 33? Is it, just get better?
I think it's going to have to be a lot more individual based. If Paul Skeens can continue this and win a Cy Young, that's success. If Bubba Chandler can get up here and have a good final 2 months, that's success. If some of these hitters finish strong, if Jack Sawinski hits 10 home runs in the last 2 months, or if Nick Gonzalez finishes the year with a 750 OPS or higher, or Spencer Horwitz rebounds after, what's been a really ugly last couple of weeks. Those are things that I would deem success. I mean, team success, throw it out the window. It doesn't matter anymore. They're so far out, Paul, and they're going to be a worse team after the deadline because they're trading away a lot of their veterans who have been some of their better players this year. You got to focus on the individual pieces who mean a lot to this organization long term. And if you can get good showings from them heading into 2026, you have a better idea of what you need to add if you want to be more competitive next year.
Well, let's do some rapid fire real quick here.
Okay.
After the trade deadline.
Back to TJ Watt talk. So
I know. The TJ Watt talk is what it is. So let's do some rapid fire here, because and then I'm going to ask you about TJ Watt. Then we'll let you go. First of all, after the trade deadline, will this guy be on the roster after the trade deadline? Reynolds.
Yes.
Okay. Kiner Falefa.
No.
Pham.
No.
Heaney.
No. All those guys are gone.
Keller.
I don't think so. I think Mitch Keller is getting moved.
Bednar.
I'll say yes. I'll say yes. I think I'll say that he ends up staying.
Horwitz.
Yeah, he'll be here.
Davis.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much all of the guys that probably would be candidates.
Hayes.
Who? Oh, Hayes. Yeah, I forgot about Hayes.
I think there's a chance he's gone.
Okay. All right. So, we could see a movement. Will we see Bubba Chandler in the rotation at some point this year?
Yeah, I think after the All-Star or not after the trade deadline when they have a couple of roster spots open.
Okay. Before I let you go, we're talking TJ Watt, obviously. I know that you've been around, you've paid attention. 4 year, it's either a 4-year deal for $145 million or a 3-year deal for $124, whatever it is. It's a hell of a lot of money. 31 years old, what are your thoughts?
I mean, that's just kind of what they had to do, right? I think it's going to be fine in the front end. I think TJ's probably played his best football. I think his current iteration of himself is still really good, but I think there's a really good chance that in the back years of this deal, they're going to be saying, oh man, really wish we weren't paying him this much money. We wish we had more room in the cap elsewhere. But I mean, I think it's something they had to do. He's been their best player for the last, decade or so, and he deserves to be one of the highest paid players in the league. It's just, I don't think it's going to age well.
No, thank you so much. We will do it again next week on a day when there's not big breaking news from the Steelers, and hopefully we can get more into the Pirates with you, sir.
Sounds good, Paul. Always happy to join you.
My man. Noah Hiles covers the Pirates, does a great job covering the Pirates. By the way, the game's always on at Archie's. Get down to Archie's on Carson Street. Archie's, home of 80-cent wings Monday through Thursday, home of the Paul Zeise grilled cheese sandwich. So get down to Archie's and enjoy yourself. Back to TJ Watt, obviously the news of the day. And here's the thing, too, that you have to think about. And I think most people, they say stuff like, well, they're going to have a rookie quarterback, so, they can get away with this. They're going to have, they're not going to have to pay a quarterback for at least 4 or 5 years. I think one of the things about that, and I mean this in all sincerity, is that that is assuming that they can go draft a quarterback. Like, maybe, I guess they might be able to, if they can't draft one this year, maybe they can squeeze one more year out of Aaron Rodgers for like $15 million or something, and so you're still not paying your quarterback any money. But the reality is, it's more likely that they're not going to have a rookie quarterback than they are. And listen, I get it. Maybe Will Howard is the guy. Maybe Will Howard is going to be, a guy that really surprises everybody, and he's their quarterback of the future. But to me, that's basically one step above hope. And, as I've said many, many times, the military, what do they say? Hope is not a method. So my point with that, when it comes to Will Howard, is that's not a long-term plan until maybe he shows you it can be a long-term plan. But here's the thing. You've now got $71 million tied up in basically 2 players, Watt and DK Metcalf. You still are going to be in a situation now where you've got to think about this. And I've said this, and people tell me I'm crazy. But what if the move from right tackle to left tackle all of a sudden turns Broderick Jones into a stud, into the guy they've moved up 10 spots to get? Guess what? You're going to have to sign him to a huge deal as well, because left tackles make lots and lots and lots and lots of monies. We just saw, who was it? Was it Sauce Gardner that just that just signed for a bunch of money with the Jets? $30 million a year, I think, at corner. What if Joey Porter Jr. goes out and he's an All-Pro this year? And you got to go try to sign him to a big, big money deal. You've got young guys who right now we're not even thinking about because, well, Joey Porter Jr. is just kind of an okay corner, not elite, not in that category. He's good. He's not great. They'll probably be able to get him for $15, $20 million. Well, what if he goes out and he's All-Pro this year? What if he goes out and he, all of the things that, have held him back, what if he just says, I'm going to go out and I'm not going to get penalties and I'm going to, be a shutdown guy and I'm going to prove that I'm one of the best corners in the league? What about Broderick Jones at left tackle? Going to cost a lot of money if you want to keep him, if he proves that he's that guy. And then a year later, you got Troy Fontenot on the right tackle, and they don't make quite as much as a left tackle, but still you're going to have to pay him a lot of money. I don't know that you've got many young defensive players other than Joey Porter that you have to worry about. Listen, in a year or two, we're going to have to pay them big, big money. but you got a few. You got a few. And there's, again, it's one of those situations where you have to be mindful of that. And you also have to be mindful of the fact you still don't have a quarterback for the long term. And so let's say, for instance, you're not able to draft one next year. And let's say, well, Howard just kind of shows you this year in camp and everything else. Well, you know what? That he's not going to be the guy of the future, which is far more likely than not. Far more likely than not that Will Howard is not your guy. My point is then you're going to have to go out and try and sign a quarterback or trade for a quarterback, and that probably means you're going to have to spend some money. So all I'm saying is everybody's talking about, well, it doesn't matter because next year, they're going to have a rookie deal for a quarterback for the next 3 or 4 years, assuming they're able to draft one. Assuming they're able to get one. And I don't think that's going to be the case. So to me, you got to be careful when you're just basically making these assumptions about the quarterback position coming up over the next few years, because for me, it is really going to be a situation of where they're going to have to pay the piper at some point. Don't know when, don't know how, but they're going to have to pay the piper at some point. Because if they don't, then they're always going to be wallowing around mediocrity. And I mean that. I'm not trying to be, alarmist, but it's hard to win. It really is. It just is one of those things where I feel like you have to make sure that you have somebody at that position that you can trust. I think the Steelers do. I thought the Steelers had a plan, but they obviously haven't had a plan. I just don't think they've had a plan at quarterback. But again, the thing about TJ Watt to me is if you want to keep him healthy, you've got to try and keep him healthy by having him on a little bit of a pitch count early in the season. Making sure that in some of these games where you blow him out or whatever, that you don't need to use him the entire second half. And you tell him, listen, you got the money. You've got all pros. You're already a Hall of Famer. I don't care about your sack, chase. I don't care about that. We paid you. We paid you because we want you to be around to win playoff games for us. So if you're going to play a little bit less, okay, you might not get as many sacks or whatever, but your place in history is secure. Period. And that's where I would tell you we're at with it. It's one of those things in my mind where you've paid him now. You dictate what he does in terms of how much he plays and how much he doesn't play. We have a special guest, a little treat. Guy I haven't talked to in a long, long time. Ray Fittipaldo from the Post-Gazette. Hey, Ray, how you doing, sir?
Good afternoon, Paul. Was not expecting to hop on today about TJ Watt, but hey, the Steelers got it done before training camp, huh?
They did, and you know what? They got it done. They most importantly got it done 15 minutes before I came on, so I had something to talk about.
Your highest show of the summer.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's the day that Aaron Rodgers signed was pretty easy too. But so here's what I'm going to ask you, Ray, because I know that you're probably really busy dealing with all this right now, and there is sort of conflicting reports about what the deal is. There's one report that's 4 years, 145 or whatever it is, 108 million is guaranteed, $36 million average. The other report is it's a 3-year extension after this year, 108 million, 41 million average. Right. Have you been able to sort of sift through this to kind of figure out what is true and what is not?
Yeah, I think the important number, Paul, is the 108 million that is guaranteed. The Steelers basically are guaranteeing 3 of the 4 years in the contract, which is something they've never done, Paul. So that's the important number to watch. I think it's important for fans to know this, but I'll spell it out again just because this is the way the business works. The national guys are always going to report what the agents give them. So if you're listening to the national reporters, yeah, it's going to be a $41 million average. But in reality, it's a new 4-year deal with an average of $36 million per season. So however you want to report it, that's fine. The most important number, Paul, is the guarantee of $108 million.
Right, but here's why it's important, Ray, and this is why I was like, I need to have this distinction made. Here's why it's important to me, because that tells me that they can get out of that 4th year without $1 zillion of dead cap money if they need to, right? I mean, because the $108 million they can spread out through the first 3 years, right?
Yeah.
And so that 4th year, maybe there's very little of the bonus and everything else, or the guarantee. So if they need to cut him after 3 years or ask him to get on with life's work or whatever,
Right.
The way it was reported by the national guys, basically that $108 million was, they're stuck for 4, this year and then 3 beyond. The way that I read it now and the way that you've just explained it, it sounds to me like they can really kind of get out of this after 3 years.
Yeah, listen, if TJ Watt doesn't age well, that's certainly something that they can cross down the road. But listen, TJ Watt is going to turn 31 during the season, so they guaranteed him his money in his age 31 year, age 32, and age 33 season. So that's basically how you want to look at this. And, Paul, just knowing the way that TJ Watt prepares himself physically, his mental approach to the game, how he prepares for each opponent, unless there's a really bad injury. Listen, he's already had the pec injury that pretty much cost him the season. Unless there's another catastrophic injury like that, I would expect the Steelers to get very good production out of him for at least the next 3 years. And, if you average it out, he has over 100 sacks in his first, 8 seasons. I would expect him to be somewhere around 12 or 15 sacks for the remainder of this contract. I think if you're the Steelers, you're getting a good return on your investment if he does that.
Do you think that they now have him secured? They might put him on some sort of a pitch count early in seasons just to try and, just to try and make sure that he's healthy and all that other stuff for the end of the year?
Listen, the way they've done it the last couple of years, TJ and Alex pretty much determined on their own when they were going to come off the field. And, Nick Herbing, a really, really good number 3, he was on the sidelines waiting for them to raise their hand, and then, he would come on, and honestly, you didn't see much of a drop-off when Nick Herbig was in the game. Now, they could play this a bunch of different ways. They can keep TJ on the field, and whenever he wants to come off, he can. He's not shy about it. He might play 80-85% of the snaps. We've all seen TJ pull himself out of the game. So, the one difference this year, Paul, is you have Jack Sawyer, 4th-round pick. Jack's going to be on the 46-man game day roster. That guy's going to have a role on special teams. You might want to work him in for 5 or 10 snaps, maybe 12 snaps a game as well. So you might be right. Maybe that pitch count comes down to TJ playing 75% of the snaps, and maybe you get a better version of TJ if you do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, but again, at his age, you kind of want to preserve his legs. Steven just jumped on and asked, is this a 3 or a 4-year deal? I think we just covered that, Ray. You've made it very clear. It's a 4-year deal. They basically have ripped up this season, and it's this year and then 3 beyond. 1 4-year deal, not a this year ends and then next year there's a 3-year extension that starts. It's 4 years. I was talking about this, Ray, before. One of the things I keep hearing from people is that, they have a quarterback who's going to be a rookie next year, so they're not going to have to pay a quarterback, so it doesn't matter, they can pay this. First of all, that's a hell of an assumption, because if the Steelers do what we know they're usually going to do, at minimum, they're going to have like 10 wins, right? 9 or 10 wins at minimum, which means they're going to be drafting in the 20s again, or, 19, 20, 21, 22 again. So let's start there. Secondly, I don't even know how many quarterbacks are going to be available next year that people think are franchise quarterbacks.
Right.
So let's go there. So you could conceivably, unless you feel like you can milk one more year out of Aaron Rodgers and, sign him for $15 million again or whatever the hell he signed for this year, you might have to pay a quarterback next year, right?
Yeah, you might be right. We don't know how that's going to shake out. I mean, listen, everything that Aaron Rodgers said to us in June, this looks like it's going to be a one-year deal. It doesn't seem like he has any aspirations to play beyond this year. But listen, maybe we'll keep the door open. If he plays really well and stays healthy and the Steelers like what they see, maybe that door would be open. I think the likely scenario that you'll see, Paul, let's say they are a 9 or 10 win team and they're drafting at 20. If there's a quarterback or quarterbacks that they really like, I think they're going to try to move up, package a ton of picks, and they have a lot of picks to trade. They can do that. They're going to try to package to move up to say number 6, number 5, whatever you think you have to do to be comfortable. And they did it a few years ago with Devin Bush. They went from 20 to 10. That didn't work out. You might have to make that gamble again if you want to go after a quarterback, which is something they obviously want to do next year.
Here's the other thing I've thrown out, Ray, and of course you're going to look at me like, okay, now you're getting ridiculous, but that's okay. That's what we do here. What if Broderick Jones is moved to left tackle and he turns into the guy they thought they drafted? Now you've got to pay him a lot of money, and what this is what, year 3 for him, or year 2 or 3 for him? So, he's coming up on, they got to make a decision about an extra year. And obviously he's a first round pick, so they could do the, 5th-year option and, kind of push the money down the road. But my point is, what if he goes out and he's an all-pro this year? How about Joey Porter Jr.? I mean, we just saw what Sauce Gardner got. I mean, what if Joey Porter Jr. goes out and he's an all-pro this year? I mean, I'm just saying they got a couple of guys that they might have to pay.
I'll say this, Paul, they will happily cross those bridges if it comes to that. I mean, it would be a pretty huge jump for Broderick Jones to go from his level of play in 24 to an all-pro in 25. But let's keep that door open. I mean, if that happens, all they would be on the hook for in 26 is the 5th-year option number, which for a left tackle is going to be up there. But I want to say it's going to be around 18 or 19 million, probably somewhere in that range. And then, you could work toward a long-term deal after that. And the same about Joey Porter. Listen, they really like Joey Porter. They think he's very good at disrupting at the line of scrimmage. What they're looking more for out of Joey is the transition. When the ball's in the air, don't grab, make a play on the ball. If Joey can start doing that and he goes from 1 interception a year to 6, they'll happily pay him when it's time too. But I think we're a little bit, probably getting ahead of ourselves if we're worrying about signing those guys to record deals at their position if it comes to that.
Yeah, I think speaking of Joey Porter, the other issue that you and I haven't talked about this, but where do you see their secondary? I mean, is Darius Slay a candidate to be a safety? Is Jalen Ramsey now your number 1 corner and Joey Porter's your number 2? Are they going to play some sort of nickel package where they only need 1 safety? What? Go into your crystal ball based on what you know and what you've seen, and obviously you cover the team. What do you think is going to happen here?
They are going to have options. Jalen Ramsey, you've heard this before, but it's true. He can play outside, he can play in the slot, and he can play safety. Now, Joey Porter and Darius Slay have never played inside, but listen, if Jalen Ramsey is a good matchup on a receiver, maybe this year, maybe they try one of those guys in the slot. Maybe that's something that would be good for Darius Slay in his age 34 year. I don't know how it's going to work out, Paul. That's why this training camp is going to be such a fun one to watch. I would imagine we're going to see Jalen Ramsey move around. And then eventually, I think during the season, we'll see him settle in at 1, maybe 2 positions. And if I had to guess right now, I would say that would be in the slot and at free safety, depending on what the sub package is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. Jalen Ramsey is an interesting player. I read a lot of different things where they were talking about how basically the Steelers and Dolphins traded one of their headaches, traded headaches basically with Minkah Fitzpatrick. I mean, I never got the impression that Minkah Fitzpatrick was a headache.
No, he certainly wasn't a headache. Listen, that guy was one of the first guys in the building. He prepared. But sometimes when you're a guy like that, Paul, right, where you think you know every nook and cranny of the defense and you think you're doing everything right and your teammates aren't on the same page, I think maybe that can cause a little bit of a rift, right? Like maybe Minkah was always ahead of his teammates, or maybe Minkah was doing too much. Maybe he thought he knew what was coming, and that didn't always happen. Maybe that's what you saw with some of the breakdowns late last season. I'm not going to point fingers at who was wrong and who was right. The reality is Minkah was probably right sometimes. Minkah was probably wrong sometimes. But I don't think it was ever to the point where he was like a locker room cancer, like a George Pickens or anything like that. I think the more likely thing is it just ran its course with Minkah, right? They were paying him a lot of money. He wasn't producing the numbers he did from 2019 to say 2022 when he was a first-team All-Pro and getting 5-6 picks a year, scoops and scores, forcing fumbles. He just wasn't doing that the last couple of years. I don't think it was necessarily his fault, but from the Steelers' perspective, it didn't make a lot of sense to pay that guy that money if he wasn't producing.
Real quick, just a couple more, and then we will get out of here. Ray, I appreciate you jumping on at such a short notice. I know you got a lot going on. And I've been thinking about this a lot. Am I crazy, which I am crazy, we know the answer to that, but am I crazy to think that Aaron Rodgers still has something left in the tank? Like, am I crazy to think that – I'm not saying he's going to be 5 years ago, but I think that the idea that he's done or that he's cooked or whatever, I'd be very careful. I mean, am I crazy here when I'm talking about this?
No, listen, I think if you put him in a situation – I'm not saying his talent was terrible with the Jets, but that wasn't a great situation in terms of the coaching and everyone being on the same page there. So you put him in a situation now with talent that's pretty good around him. DK Metcalf, Jonnu Smith, Pat Freiermuth. We'll see about Calvin Austin. Then you incorporate the coaching with Arthur Smith and Aaron being on the same page. I think it does have a chance to work better than it did in New York. Now, listen, his final years in Green Bay, that wasn't who he was in 2011 or 2012 or even 2015 or 2016. But if you can just get a scaled back version of that, let's say he throws for, I don't know, I'm just throwing out numbers, 30 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, doesn't turn the ball over a lot. I think that's a good season for Aaron Rodgers. And if he does that, I think the Steelers will squarely be in a playoff race.
If he throws for 30 touchdowns and, say 7 or 8 interceptions, that would be amazing. I think one of the things, Ray, and I've pointed this out many times, the last 10 games last year with the Jets, as he got a little bit more healthy and whatever, but his last 10 games, 18 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. I mean, that's a pretty good ratio. The only other question I have is, do you have faith in Roman Wilson, Robert Woods, Calvin Austin? I guess Scotty Miller is still around, isn't he? Or, whatever, Skandrek or whatever the hell the guy's name is. I mean, do you have faith in one of those guys sort of stepping in?
Yeah, listen, if I had to pick one of those guys, and people want me to say Calvin Austin is going to be the number 2 receiver. Okay. I think in name, yeah, he's going to be the number 2 receiver in terms of targets and receptions. But if you incorporate the tight ends into that, he's probably going to be number 3 or number 4. So that's really all you need him to do, is be a little bit more productive than he was last year. Last year, he had 549 yards receiving, 4 touchdowns. You can get him up to 650, 700 yards, maybe 5 or 6 touchdowns. Pat Freiermuth is going to produce. You hope Jonnu Smith can produce maybe 600-700 yards, maybe 5-6 touchdowns. So when you add it all up, and DK Metcalf has a 1,000-yard season, when you add it all up, I think it could work. And then the unknown part of this is, what's Roman Wilson going to do? What's his role going to be? Right now, he's the number 3 receiver, probably number 5 target. What do you get out of Roman Wilson? We'll see what happens in training camp. Didn't have get a chance to show a whole heck of a lot last year because he got injured so early. So he's another guy to watch. We'll see what he can do. But I think when you talk about those 5, if they can get good production from those 5 players, Wilson maybe, I don't know, 350, 400 yards, couple touchdowns, I think you're talking about a pretty good receiver / tight end core.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was the last one I had for you is Jonnu Smith. How does he fit into this whole thing?
Yeah, if you look at Jonnu Smith when he's been with Arthur Smith, around 500-600 yards receiving, bunch of catches, 50-60 catches per season. Last year with Mike McDaniel in Miami, he had like 88 catches, 884 yards, 10 touchdowns, or 8 touchdowns. I'm sorry, I haven't looked at his stat line lately. So, listen, if you're probably not going to get the Dolphins version of him because he was basically their offense last year along with Tyreek Hill. He's probably going to have a different role here. But if you can get him to produce what he's always done with Arthur, around 600 yards receiving, contribute a little bit in the red zone, be that target, that short target in short areas when you need a first down, I think that'd be a win for the Steelers and a win for Jonnu Smith too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really, to me, I think, I hesitate to say this, but I actually am cautiously optimistic that all of this that they've done could work. Could be a disaster too, but it could work. I feel like maybe Jalen Ramsey can still play a little bit. Maybe Darius Slay can give him a good slot corner, and that's not even, maybe Peyton Wilson is ready to be a starter. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot to that. You know what I mean? But I don't know. Am I crazy? But I'm cautiously optimistic that all of this could actually work out.
Yeah, and listen, the one thing that we don't know is how long it's going to take for all of this to gel, right? And I think that's why, you'll be up there with me. I know I'll see you at camp. Yeah. This is going to be a camp where you're going to have constant storylines about the defense and these guys gelling, about Aaron Rodgers gelling with his receivers, Jonnu Smith, how's he going to fit into the offense? So, you got everyone under contract. It might have taken a while. It took until middle of June to get Aaron Rodgers done. You get the Ramsey deal done late June, and you get TJ Watt done mid-July. Not ideal in terms of building your team in the spring, but you do get them all there for training camp, and they do have 6 weeks to work it out once they report next week. So we'll see if they can get it done. It's not a slam dunk, but I tend to agree with you. If this all kind of meshes the way Omar wants it to mesh, they got a chance of having a good season.
There's no question. Ray, I know you're busy, and I know it's late last minute. I appreciate you jumping on with me, my man. And won't be long when we'll be standing up there on the hillside or wherever in Lake Trobe watching guys go through the motions at training camp.
I'll see you up at St. Vincent in a couple of days.
All right, my man. We'll see you.
Right.
That's Ray Fittipaldo of the Post-Gazette. Obviously, he does it as well as anybody out there. And again, just to sort of review before we get out of here, TJ Watt signed a deal. For clarification's sake, it's a 4-year deal, not a 3-year deal, a 4-year deal. They ripped up this year and rolled it all into a new contract. There's $108 million guaranteed. But the thing about it is the way that it's structured, if you do the math, what's 36 times 3? $108 million, which means they've guaranteed the first 3 years. But that also means that last year is paper money in some ways. That'll be the kind of year they can get out of it without, a lot of dead money and dead cap money. So if he's not really ready to play, if it looks like he's kind of done or he's not living up to his contract, it's so important to understand it's a 4-year deal, not a 3-year extension. There's a difference because a 4-year deal means that 4th year, that last year, they can get out of it with very little problem. If it was a 3-year deal, they'd have basically just signed up for him for 4 years, this year and 3 more. which takes him into age 34, age 35. So that's the biggest thing I would tell you to take away from all of this stuff is that it's a 4-year deal, not a 3-year deal. And that's mostly because it's important to note how they're going to spread out that $108 million. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a lot of guaranteed money. And he made his money. He's able to say he got the deal he wanted. He got the years he wanted. The one thing he didn't do, he did not get more money overall and he didn't get more guaranteed money than Myles Garrett, which is interesting to me. But again, the way that you can spin it is the way that it's being spun, which is, well, he's making $41 million a year on this extension. Well, he's not, because it's not an extension. It's a 4-year deal. So that is just kind of interesting with respect to all of that stuff. We obviously have gone long today. I appreciate you all jumping on and watching. Like I said, TJ Watt is a Steeler one helmet guy, whatever the hell you want to call it. He is a guy that is going to be around for quite some time. Right, there we go. So we'll do it again, I guess, next week. I think training camp starts next week at some point. So we'll be starting to ramp it up even more. We'll do some different things, obviously, once training camp starts. But until then, enjoy your night.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.